Hello everybody, welcome to another DVD Blu-Ray collection update video, and today, first up we have The Fabelmans. Yeah, The Fabelmans is a really, probably one of Steven Spielberg's best, like in the top 10 for sure. It was modeled after his own life, so it's Steven Spielberg's life. It's Steven Spielberg's true story of how he got into filmmaking when he was very young. His parents took him to see The Greatest Show on Earth, and he was so fascinated by the movie. Actually, he was more fascinated by the train crash near the end of the film. If you've seen the movie, you know it's not really that interesting. But basically, at one point, there's this train crash that happens, and yet he was traumatized by it. So he would have these model train sets, and he would, like, crash them over and over again. And then, like, one of his parents came up with the idea, either his mom or his dad, I'm not sure, they came up with the idea to actually film the crash so that he could watch it over and over. And that's how it started. So you actually see Steven Spielberg's life unfold in this movie, and it's told very accurately, mostly accurate. But again, this is Steven Spielberg's own life, how he became the filmmaker we all know today. And it's incredible, the amount of... This is easily one of Steven Spielberg's best movies, without a doubt. Michelle Williams is dynamic as Steven Spielberg's mom. The guy playing Steven Spielberg himself. Even though the characters, even though the family is named the Fabelmans, you cannot ignore the fact that it is Steven Spielberg. It's the Spielbergs. There is no question about it whatsoever. I've actually had an interest in, like, actually going through Steven Spielberg's entire filmography and actually seeing him progress as a filmmaker. You know, starting out doing, like, TV stuff, meeting John Ford, and that it's actually the meeting with John Ford is depicted in The Fabelmans, by the way. So I'm pretty interested in that. So the Long Long Trailer from 1954. Or is it 1954? Oh, I was right, 1954. Okay, so this is the best film that Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz made together. It's way better than Too Many Girls, their first film together. It was way better than that. So it's about this married couple who, the wife, played by Lucille Ball, it's basically the film version of I Love Lucy. It's essentially that. Lucy sees this trailer, and she loves it so much, but she actually begs her husband, Desi Arnaz, to buy it for her. And over the course of the movie, you kind of see them just trying to figure out what to do with it. Yeah, they go traveling with it and stuff, but so many shenanigans happen in this. I don't want to give it away. This is the chemistry between Lucy and Desi are at their best here. I'm talking about in terms of movies, not in terms of TV. They had always cemented themselves with I Love Lucy, creating Desilu Studios, and produced some of the best shows of all time, like the Dick Van Dyke Show and the original Star Trek. They pretty much revolutionized TV for the better, and, you know, not to mention it was one of the first female producers, one of the first female heads of an actual studio. They pretty much did several movies together, and this is, I think it was either this one or I think there was another one. I think they did two of these. Films, and yeah, this is the best one of the two. This is the best one. And not to mention, this was made when I Love Lucy was roughly in its third or fourth season. So it was still, I think, third season. It was in the third season. They were at an all-time high with this one, so it's worth checking out. It's also one of the first road movies, too. I'm not talking about the road movies with Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. I'm talking about, like, travel, like road trip movies. It's one of those. Next up, we have House. Oh my God. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to give anything away because if I do, I'm going to spoil this movie. Okay, so this is from Japan. It's a Japanese movie, but dear Lord, it's one of the best. It is one of the best. I had no idea what I was in for, but man, do yourself a favor. If you want to check this movie out, do me one favor. Do not look up anything Don't look up any reviews, don't look up any trailers, don't look up any clips, just blind watch it. And man, I guarantee you, you will have as much fun and thrills as I did. It's about a group of friends, been friends for a while. They travel, one of them suggests that they go to her grandmother's house. This house is like sitting up on a hill, completely, isolated from the rest of Japan. That's all I'm going to say. That is all I'm going to say. This is absolutely amazing. You have to watch this. If there was ever a movie that came out in Japan that I think is the most underrated, House. Trust me, you will have a fantastic time. I guarantee you that. And the less you know, the better. Next up, we have The Jazz Singer, 1927. A lot of people associate this as the first sound movie. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was the first major film to use sound, but it wasn't the first overall. Since around 1923, there have been films that utilized synchronized. There were films that they essentially utilized elements of sound. So, like in a swashbuckling movie, they would have like the cleaning of the swords or something along those lines. But as far as full sound, they were only stuck to the only sound films that they could do were mainly shorts, either comedy sketches or musical sequences. And even then, it was an experimental phase. Nobody knew what to do with sound. It was just trial and error. But The Jazz Singer was the first feature-length film, not short, feature-length film to utilize sound. And the funny thing is that it's used in a very clever way. Al Jolson, a famous singer at the time, like one of the great singers of that era, he plays a singer coming from a Jewish family, and his real big desire is to sing jazz, but his father disapproves, saying that he needs to be there for the Gabor, which is a very sacred holiday in Jewish tradition. But his real desire is to be a jazz singer, not to take his father's place. He essentially utilizes jazz in his shows and essentially becomes well known, but dad disowns him, and the mom is very supportive of his venture, of his dream and his passion. So the sound elements in this movie are only used during the musical sequences. The rest of the movie is silent. Believe it or not, the rest of the movie is silent. A lot of people hail this as like the first sound movie. It wasn't. It was not the first. It was the first feature-length film to incorporate sound. But what's interesting is the dynamic of it. It was one of the originators of the sound film, even if it wasn't perfect. Actually, this is a really nice edition of A Jazz Singer right here, which, by the way, it's now in the public domain. Actually, it just entered the public domain last year. But it also has this little booklet here. So yeah, it sort of gives context, images and stuff. I don't know if you can see this real well, but yeah. But this is great. One of the classics for sure. You actually get not just the movie, but also a documentary on the history of sound film, and you also get a lot of shorts from the golden era of sound. So the golden era of sound is here and accounted for. And of course, there's a lot of iconic moments, where Al Jolson says wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet. And then he sings one of the classic songs that was popular at the time. I don't remember it at the moment, but it's gonna drive me nuts. What song was that? For being one of the all-time greats, it's very basic in terms of its plot. There's not as much depth as you would think. But again, this was during an era where plots were very simplified. They weren't vast and deep like they are now. Certainly, they weren't that involved. But it's basically partly a father, son, mother, and son relationship dynamic with musical sequences here and there. And toward the end of the film, where he performs his signature act and he sings "Mammy" to his mom. That's a very touching moment. I could go on for basically, this is a classic film. I'm surprised he doesn't sing Swanee, because Swanee is probably my favorite Al Jolson song. But you have to remember, Al Jolson was one of the most popular stars at that time. You know, again, he got his jazz from the African American culture. So essentially, he was, in the same way how Elvis brought blues and rock and roll to the masses, Al Jolson brought jazz to the masses. He was very supportive of the African American community. Again, it's worth noting that we were living in very different times back then. People thought were acceptable then was actually wrong, and it's still wrong today. To shield it and to pretend it didn't happen is actually worse than seeing something that we may find uncomfortable, than seeing something that was a product of the time. And certainly it's important to remember that, you know, we have to learn from our history. We try to improve, but at the same time, we have to remind people of who we were. So moving away from the Siren era and on to the 1970s, we have The Phantom Tollbooth. Oh man, this movie. Okay, I believe it's on YouTube right now, on the free with ads section. I believe it's there. I don't know if it's there anymore, but man, when I saw this, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. I had no idea what to expect, and I ended up actually enjoying it. Basically, it's about this little boy named Milo. He's not getting anything out of school. He's basically just bored of it. And he's like, oh, I'm so bored. There's nothing to do all day, whatever. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's this box that shows up in his living room, and out pops out a toll booth and a car. Stay with me here. So he hops inside the car, goes through a toll booth, and all of a sudden it becomes animated. So he's taken to this world where it was run by two kings. The king of numbers and a king of letters. Neither of them got along, so the kingdom was basically separated. Yes, it's stupid. It's not that fantastic, or it's weird. But it's good kind of weird. It's underrated. It's very interesting. This was actually based off of a children's book, and man, why didn't I see this when I was a kid? Because man, this is interesting. It was animated by Chuck Jones. You have an interesting voice cast, actually. Let's see. You have Mel Blanc. You have Dawes Butler. You may know him from voicing Yogi Bear and several of the other Hanna-Barbera characters. You have Candy. What? How do you pronounce his name? Candy Candido. Okay, if you don't know who Candy Candido is, he had one of the bassiest voices ever. You may know him for voicing one of Maleficent's hench pigs in Sleeping Beauty, or that crocodile in Robin Hood. So he has this very deep, Furl Ravenscroft type voice. So you recognize him instantly. And you also have June Foray in here as well. So June Foray, the voice of Rocky the Squirrel, and hundreds of other characters. And it's interesting, the songs in here are kind of strange, but they make sense. They're not the best written, but they're not the worst at all. And it's interesting because you have this dog named Talk, who has like a little clock inside him. You have this beetle. I'm blanking on your name right now. Depressed beetle. I don't even remember what his name is, but yeah, I don't remember his name. Sorry. But it's interesting. This is really interesting. There's a lot of educational value in it, which is even weirder because you watch these movies to get away from education. It's the same thing as like Sword in the Stone. It's like the education is used as a tool to help the world and progress through the story. Mine was not uneducated, but like he didn't get much use out of school. But in here, he has to use education to help this world. Whereas in Sword of the Stone, future King Arthur, Merlin teaches him how to be a better leader through getting an education. So this is underrated. If you haven't seen this, check this out. Alright, coming up next, and I'm telling you, I've waited a long time for this. Batman. Batman. Yes, this is the original Adam West show. from the 1960s. This was the original show. And let me tell you something. Now, I've only ever seen the movie. I've only seen the movie. I've never watched any other Adam West Batman film or show, whatever. I've only seen this. And the movie was good. The movie was good fun. Comedic Batman. I talked about this before in my collection videos. But here's the actual show. Here's the actual show in the box. And actually, there are a couple editions of this. This is the repackaged edition. And as you can see, I haven't opened this yet. That's because I just got it today, actually. Here's the thing. I ordered this 3 times. 3 times. I am not making this up. Okay, so the first time I ordered it off of Amazon. So here's a PSA for all you people who want to hunt down certain releases. I want to save a little money, so I got one of the cheaper options. It was like 40 some bucks. And I got it in the mail, and this is what I got. As you can see, it doesn't look anything like how it was originally supposed to look. No, I didn't want that deluxe edition with the show and playing cards and the die-cast Hot Wheels car and the Adam West booklet or whatever. I didn't need all those knick-knacky things. I just wanted the show. And I thought that I was getting it, but instead I got this. So, as a result, I ended up... It wasn't even region-free. Region-free essentially means that you can play it on any player. No matter where you are, USA, or in this case, Europe, you can play it. Unfortunately, this release did not have that, so I had to return it. So I ordered it this Christmas. I actually ordered from that same site again, from that same listing, hoping that maybe it was a fluke. And guess what? The same thing happened. I got the exact same thing, and at this point, my family and I got frustrated because like we spent a good amount of money on this, and it's like, it's like at this point we both got frustrated. My mom and I I got frustrated. My mom got frustrated. It was just like we couldn't even celebrate that because they kept sending us for a wrong thing. So what happened was that I had to send that back, and I ordered this off of eBay. And thank God it was new. It was brand new, sealed. As you can see, it's sealed. This is what it's supposed to look like. You see this? Is it upside down? Yeah, it's upside down. Sorry. This is what it's supposed to look like. Would be spines. This is the repackaged release. And yes, this is what it's supposed to look like. And I had to return that. And man, I am so happy I don't gotta do that anymore. So, do yourselves a favor, do your research, do your homework. Actually, there is a listing for the UK version. So, I have no idea what the hell that was about, but man, I'm so happy I have this now. I am so happy I have this. This is the original Adam West show. Yeah, this is the original Adam West show. Although, I heard... people saying that they were shipping out discs with missing content or whatever, but I'm hoping that I got lucky. So, yeah, you got all 3 seasons of the original show, plus I think there's an episode guide in here. Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, I think there is an episode guide in here. I just don't know. I just can't see it right now because it's unopened at the moment. This is the Adam West show. This is the one that is worth watching because, yeah, you cannot have the Batmans you have today without Adam West. Give the Adam West show a try. I know some people may find it campy or corny or whatever, but... Alright, so we have a couple bonuses for you. We have Get On Up. This is the James Brown film. Played by Chadwick Boseman. Does a really great job of portraying James Brown. I didn't really know much about James Brown until I saw this movie. And I realized, wow, there's so much influence he had on music. And he had, like, a huge influence on music. And, I mean, man, just be energetic performances, I feel good, And remember also Living in America, which I think people know that. I think that was in one of the Rocky movies, I think. But, Get On Up does a really good job of showcasing James Brown, showcasing, his troubled childhood as well as how he became the godfather of soul. And it's pretty accurate for the most part. It's pretty decently accurate, not perfect, because there were a couple scenes that didn't happen at all. But for example, there's one scene where he's about to perform and his mom showed up. That didn't happen. But other than that, next we got a couple actioners here. We have Commando. This is my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. This movie is so good. It's very basic. Arnold Schwarzenegger is out to rescue his daughter who was kidnapped. He was once a colonel, martial arts expert, and now he has to travel to South America in order to get her back. This movie is just pure action across the board, without question. Easily amazing, dynamic, incredible. I shouldn't say dynamic, because it's basically just bullets flying everywhere, but man, is this great. This is a great actioner, and especially the best part is the last 35 minutes, where it's nothing but one big shootout. It is nothing but one big shootout. This was one of the best action movies to have come out of the 80s. That, Cobra, 48 Hours, Lethal Weapon, Above the Law. There are some great action films that came out in the 80s. This is one of them. 1985, remember that. From 2007, we have Shoot 'Em Up. This is great. Again, it's smart. I like my action movies to be smart. I don't like them to be mindless and just bullets everywhere for like 2 hours. It's just not interesting. It's boring. So you have to have some intelligence behind it, and this is one of them. Clive Owen takes no craps from anybody. He only thinks for himself when one day he's caught in a situation that he can't get out of, which is to protect Monica Bellucci and her just born son. And why? Because they're being targeted by Paul Giamatti, who's a hitman, and now he's basically stuck protecting her and the child at the same time. Now, this is just pure action bliss right here. Bullets flying everywhere, fast-paced action. Paul Giamatti's a fantastic hitman. Clive Owen makes his presence known, and he becomes a very interesting character, even if it's a very minimal one. But man, it's great. There's like one scene where they're just, they're in a room, the two of them are in a room together, and they can't, and they want to, and they can't get anywhere because there's all this stuff happening. There's like action, and they can't even get one moment's peace to themselves. There's like these guys coming through the door, and it's great. It's great stuff. Great action right here. Broken Arrow from 1996. One of John Woo's early action films, or actually no, one of John Woo's first American action movies. Actually, the title Broken Arrow is not just some random thing that they came up with. It actually means something. The term Broken Arrow means that the cargo is lost or missing. At least it's a military term. So John Travolta and Christian Slater play these two pilots who are transporting this bomb. When one day Christian Slater mentions the fact that, gee, wouldn't it be great to have the powers of a god? And then all of a sudden, just like that, John Travolta becomes the villain. He takes the plane over, he crashes it, he takes the bomb, and, essentially wants to use it. So now they have to get the bomb back. Okay. This is interesting stuff right here, because what we have is early John Woo here. He did Hard Boiled and The Killer in the early 90s, but when he migrated to America to make his own movies, he made Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme, this one, and Face Off, which Face Off is just great. Face Off is a great movie. But Broken Arrow, I think, is a close second. It's pretty interesting, actually. It's interesting because there's a lot of interesting stuff in this movie, especially, probably the best scene in the movie is, like, the climax that takes place on this train. And I don't want to give it away, but it's pretty good. Alright, let's calm down a little bit from the action, and let's take a look at Glengarry Glen Ross. Now, this is a great drama based on a Pulitzer Prize winning play The writer of the play actually wrote the screenplay for this. The plot involves these businessmen who are trying to climb up the ladder. They're kind of wondering, like, what are they even doing in this profession, whatever. Their boss, played by Alec Baldwin, tells them, to follow the ABC code. Always be closing. And so some of them are frustrated that some of them have a better streak than others, and so each one of them wants in. So basically everything. This is basically like one giant competition to see who can be the better salesman, while simultaneously being philosophical about, like, why are we doing this? Is this really even worth our lives? Do we really want to spend the rest of our lives being salesmen? So it's kind of that thing where it's like you want to get to the top, but not at the cost of, your own sanity and, your meaning in life. Great cast. I mean, Alec Baldwin, Kevin Spacey, Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Alan Arkin. This is just great right here. I cannot even begin to describe, the level of interesting here. Ed Harris is in here as well, but man, Jonathan Pryce. I mean, this is just pure. It's a great cast with a great script. It's very wordy. It's snappy at times, very adult. So you can actually kind of sense of, like, the adult world in a sense. You get a feel for what this adult world is like. And not to mention, it's superbly acted, wonderful cast. Check this out. Next, we have a horror movie of sorts. Let Me In. The plot of this movie involves Chloe Grace Moretz as a young girl who moves into this condo and meets this boy played by Cody. I'm blanking on the guy's name now. Cody Smith McPhee, yeah. I think he was in Power of a Dog, but I could be wrong though. Anyway, so they try to form a relationship together, even though she's not really interested per se. She's not really interested, but basically the whole thing where it's like she, they do kind of have a connection, but she doesn't have any, like, feelings toward him. They just kind of hang out. They just kind of hang out outside. But the twist is that she's a vampire. She's not a villain. She's not a bad person. She's just, who she is. She doesn't know why she's the way she is, but at the same time, she's trying to understand herself, and he's trying to understand her. This is great. This was actually a remake of the American version of a film from Sweden called Let the Right One In. I say check this out just to get a introductory course, even if you have no interest in watching Let the Right One In. At the very least, this is a good American version. I'd say this is on par with The Ring in terms of, like, good American. I know the word remake gets overused, so I'm gonna say translations. This is a good American translation of a Swedish film, but it's worth checking out. Friday. Great comedy right here. Basically, the plot of this movie involves these two friends, played by Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. They're basically friends with this douche who they borrowed $200, but then the guy's like, "You owe me the money or else," and so they try to get the money back in all sorts of crazy ways. It's funny, it's clever, it's interesting, and it works. It's actually, this is Chris Tucker's best movie. Actually, this is Chris Tucker's best movie, and not to mention, it's also one of the funniest. Definitely really funny. The chemistry between Ice Cube and Chris Tucker are really on point here. This is an example of good casting. These two characters, and then you also have, I should point out, you also have with future Oscar winner Regina King, Bernie Mac. You have a good cast here, and it's also well written too. So yes, this is a good time. I usually don't like stoner comedies or like raunchy comedies. I'm not really a big fan of those. I like a couple of them, but they don't really interest me at all. But that's one of the better ones. That is it. We're done. So that said, thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, see y'all later.